Yo, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. Go ahead, give this channel, subscribe, share, leave some messages and comments. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell. You know what to do. Are we in the middle of a revolution in this country? I get asked this question a couple of times a week, and I also get asked, if there was a revolution, whose side would you be on? And I usually follow that up with a question of my own. Well, whose side would you be on? Because it seems to me like there is no two opposing sides to a classic, everyday, run-of-the-mill revolution that we've seen throughout history. What we have going on here is very unique and is far different than anything else at any time in the history of mankind. We're going to get into all that right here. But first, let's break down how revolutions start. And they always occur with the idea that shit's fucked up and we need to make things better. And the people that are always the ones that kick it off to attack the status quo or the establishment usually have the goal in mind that we're going to make things better. We know what's right. They're wrong. They need to go. We need to be put into power, and everything will suddenly get better, and it'll be peace and prosperity, and we'll have a golden age around us. But it never happens that way, and it never works out that way. It never works out that way. Why? Because humanity, for what it is naturally selfish, narcissistic, opportunity-seeking at its worst, and backstabbing. Right? Because anytime anybody gets power, it corrupts them absolutely. The old saying is true. Now, I know that's a very negative outlook on people, but it's reality. Because it's like I said, I don't like to sugarcoat shit. People like to talk about how everything's all crimsons and clovers and tulips and doves flying. But that's not what reality is. That's not what humanity is. You could just look through history and see exactly what kind of an animal a human being is. In any situation, I mean, if there was like a natural disaster that struck, and it's been proven it's happened in this country, when it happened with Katrina, when it happened with other natural disasters, people preyed on the weaker people and stole from people and killed people just to get what they wanted. It happens like that every single time with humanity. Anytime somebody has a little bit of power, it corrupts them to the point to where they need to take more and more and more. In this country, the uniqueness of it all is that it's not a revolution in the traditional sense. What we are in the midst of, or in the beginning stages of, is a series of multilateral, simultaneous revolutions happening all at once. You have the original establishment, the status quo, your everyday white people that are the prodigy of long history of settlers that have come here from Europe in order to establish this European utopia of freedom and democracy. Way back when, a couple hundred years ago, none of them ever anticipated that there would be so many different cultures merging on this country. People of different races, ethnicities, people of different religious beliefs, sexual orientations, all these other things that are going on. None of them really had an idea that this is what it would be. But this is what it is. Because anytime you have a huge empire, like the United States is a business, and it's an empire. You could look at it as an empirical business. And whenever you have that, other cultures are going to flock to it. It's just the way it is. It happened in Rome. It happened in Persia. It happened in Egypt, Babylon. And now it's happening here. The uniqueness of it all is a lot of these directional revolutions, cultural revolutions that are occurring, are being driven by people that have gotten a raw deal in the past, or their ancestors or grandparents or great-grandparents have suffered under some form of racial injustice, disparagement, disenfranchisement, slavery, displacement, all of that stuff. So now their progeny has created these cultural revolutions to counter what they feel is the established idea that originally put these circumstances into place. In a lot of cases, they got a valid point. Because let's face it, for many, many generations, this country was ran by a European, all-male, Christian values idea that women need to be kept in check. Slavery was ordained by God. All these other races of people, since they don't follow our ways of religion and our ways of government, they have to be savages and they have to be driven out. But in reality, it was always about the greed of it all. They saw this wide area of land, wide open and full of opportunities and gifts and fruits of the earth that was for them to take. All they had to do was insert the idea into the minds of settlers that this is the right thing, that these various different indigenous people that are in the West that you will encounter are going to kill you, they're going to rape your wife, they're going to eat your children, they're going to do all that. You must kill them on sight. And this is what a lot of them did, because that's what really drives any form of revolution. A large amount of misinformation and fear-mongering and fake news and ideas inserted into the mass movement. So Eric Hoffer wrote a book called The Thoughts and Ideas on Mass Movements, and he simply said, any mass movement needs a focus point of the mob itself. You have to be able to use all their emotions, all their fears, all their feelings and frustrations and anger and everything, and hone it in on a directed target. And then unleash the herd. That's what happened in Nazi Germany. That's what happened in Russia during the Russian Revolution. It happened in China, and the Chinese Revolution. It happened in Mexico several times. And it happened in the Roman Empire when Christianity inserted itself in there, and they were out in the streets. The apologists were in numbers. The martyrs were lining up to let everybody know that the Roman mythological belief system was corrupt and was by the devil, and it was going to lead you to ruin. And eventually that religious idea took over the Roman Empire, and it dissolved. Never really fell, but it dissolved from the Cultural Revolution itself into many different nations. The Holy Roman Empire, the Eastern Empire, England, France, Spain, all these countries were created from what was left of the Roman Empire. All these cultures just basically grew on in the fabric of Roman society, and it changed it forever. Remember, Rome was around for a long time. Right now in the U.S., it's a very different place than what it was 100 years ago. Think of 1919 as opposed to 2019 and how much has changed. You couldn't even have interracial couples back in them days in a lot of places. It was against the law. Now you see it everywhere. The idea of having mosques all over the place was unheard of. People that were openly gay were killed or put in jail. All those things have changed in just 100 years. Think of how much has changed. Women's rights, voting rights. But how much has really changed? A lot has, but a lot of things haven't. The one thing that is never going to change is the opportunistic greed factor that every human being has. And it doesn't matter what color your skin is. Because despite popular opinion, there ain't only one race of people on this earth that are racist. I mean, that's bullshit, and that's just not even realistic to even think that. Because all you have to do is look at history and see that racism and ethnic cleansing and all that has happened all over the world. And it's still happening in other places. Shit, just go to Libya. Be black and go to Libya and see what happens to you in some spots over there. Or in some spots in the Sudan. The Arab population right there will kill you. Straight up. And they won't even bat an eye about it. They'll just kill you. On the opposite side of these cultural revolutions that are sparking up along ethnic lines, color lines, religious lines, sexual identity lines, you also have the old guard cultural revolution that is growing to the point to where some people are getting alarmed over it. But that's what happens when a country goes through a transformation. The old established guard goes through its last death throes. And it appears to be something that's growing in proportion, but really it's exploding and changing. Whether justified or not, the one thing that is true is that most of us today don't know what any of the atrocities and holocausts and all of the death and the emotion and struggle. Most of us alive today don't know what that even feels like. Because we weren't there. We weren't alive for that. Our ancestors, our forefathers were responsible and involved in all of that. One way, shape, or form. And I hate to say it, but I'm going to be the one that says it, that a lot of us of European descent, we are paying for the sins of our forefathers right now. And in reality, the cultural revolutions that are directed at the old world European control of this country is basically just blindly shooting into a dark forest, hoping to hit the enemy, but hitting everybody in its path. Most people of today, of European descent, don't even think about slavery and wouldn't even consider even having a slave. Probably think that it was appalling. Most of them don't even have racism as being a driving component of their daily lives. Most of them are just trying to get through another day, keeping the roof over their head, keeping their children fed, and wondering if their jobs are going to even be here tomorrow. Then you have a large group of them that feel like they're unjustly being attacked. And as a result of that, a knight in shining armor appears in the form of Donald Trump, and they feel that this is going to restore them back to greatness, to their greatness. In a lot of their minds, this is true. But it's not going to happen. Because this country is so integrated at this point, with many different cultures and walks of life, that the transformation is going to happen. It's happening, so you just might as well come to peace with it. I get a lot of racial attack from other white people that call me a race traitor, but why am I a race traitor? Or am I not just a product of the merging of cultural ideas? We talked about this in the last episode with somebody like 1090 Jake and myself. A lot of people think it's silly or think it's crazy or it's out of the norm. But there's been white boys in the streets in various different gangs for a long time. This ain't something that's new. But the general consensus with all races right now is that it's some kind of buffoonery to see somebody like myself. It's because you don't have any idea about any history of any of this stuff. You only believe what you're told by your role models and your programmers, your external stressors. This knight in shining armor, your Lancelot figure that tells you what to do one day to the next. And this is why I've gone on and I've attacked people's role models, or the kind of people that people try to emulate themselves after. In all different walks of life, it doesn't matter what direction you're in. Because I am what's called a free-thinking individual. I'm basically sitting on top of the mountain with a bowl of popcorn watching all of this unfold. People say, well, it has something to do with you. It has nothing to do with me. Nothing at all. At all. I had somebody ask me one time, would you be willing to stand up with us and fight for our cause in this particular field? You know what I told them? I told them, when you're ready to stand up and let me get my gun rights back on my fight, then I'll stand up and fight with you on yours. Until then, I'm not taking a side on anything. Because we all have self-interest. You could say that that's negativity, but in reality, do you really know what negativity and positivity really is? Just because somebody says that the world is full of crimsons and clovers and tulips and doves flying, is that really what the world is? Or are you just doing what you're told and thinking that it is? Because for every positive, there's a negative. For every negative, there's a positive. It's the flip of a coin. I basically don't sugarcoat shit, and I see the world for what it really is. And you have to be balanced in the middle of all these things in order to truly be an elite among a bunch of people that are sheep. And the thing that I try to teach most through all of this content that I put out is that I'm not afraid to speak my mind about anything. We've talked a lot about the merging of culture in this country right now. And this is what's created all these cultural revolutions and the counter-revolution of the old way. People are drawing all these lines in the sands. And they're ready to just go at it with each other. Why would anybody want to engage in any of this? Because in reality, today, in this modern day, there are no factors in play that prevent you from achieving anything. You prevent yourself when you create a self-fulfilling prophecy that says that this established way of life is counterproductive to your prosperity and your success, because it's not. There ain't no factors or no circumstance that you are currently under that prevents you from achieving anything. You prevent yourself by allowing other people to tell you what to do and tell you that this is right. But what are you really fighting for? Is anybody coming into your house and taking food out of your fridge or killing your children? No. On all fronts, why are you really fighting, and what are you really holding on to? And what are you really trying to take away? These are the things that you have to ask yourself before you take that next step into something that you cannot reverse. Everybody thought that it was a good idea to overthrow the status quo. It's an irrational reaction to something that they feel that they can't overcome any other way. But it's not the case in the country that we live in. We aren't living under the Tsar in Russia. We aren't living under the Forbidden City in China. We're not living under the royal crown of England. We're not living under corrupt dons in Mexico. We're not living under a corrupt emperor in Persia. Regardless of what anybody thinks about the presidency or the Congress or whatever, they are only as powerful as you allow them to be. The elites in this country, the ones that decide what your cultural beliefs are going to be, what you're going to drink, what you're going to wear, what you're going to listen to, who you're going to think is cool, who you're going to think is not cool, those people are only as powerful as you allow them to be. Somebody like me could sit there and turn on the TV and not be influenced by any of them. And that's been the driving point from the beginning with me. Prison Break Raw is breaking free from your self-imprisoned mind. Because we're all in prison. You know what I mean? How are you going to break free? And what are you going to tell yourself? Do you really need to find some role model, some knight in shining armor to tell you how to think and tell you what to do and tell you how to exercise and tell you when to wake up and go to bed and all these other things in order to achieve true happiness? Because if you're looking for that in somebody else, you're never going to find it. Because it's real easy for me to tell you to be positive and hold your chin up and be strong. When a meteorite comes flying out, hurtling out of space and crashes into your house and kills your whole family, what's all that positive thinking going to do for you then? The thing in the principles that I always live by is that I'm a realist. And that the reality of life is under Murphy's Law, that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And a Patton's rule or law is that a good plan today is better than a perfect one tomorrow. I live in the moment and I understand that everything I have can be taken away from me at any given moment in time. What is my backup plan? Where do I go from here? How do I deal with people that don't like me or people that ain't ever going to accept me? I have created a role model in myself. I look to myself for the answers. I don't look to some external figure, some prophet or apostle or son of God type of a person, self-proclaimed savior of the people. Before any of yous, on whatever side that you are on, take that next step towards a revolution, just remember, it don't ever get any better. Because whoever gets put into power next is going to do the same shit that the people that they deposed did. It's just the history of man. Look at it. It's everywhere. Show me one place where a revolution has led towards prosperity or a better way of living for all people. You can't. Even in the Soviet Union, they thought by killing the Tsar and his whole family that this new communist idea would bring prosperity to all people, but they ended up starving to damn near to death. Same thing in China with their Cultural Revolution. The best way to deal with what is going on today is to understand that we are all human beings striving for the same goal, success, and the benefit of our families. We could do that together, or we could do that constantly fighting each other, and there ain't never going to be no kind of peace, and there's always going to be somebody bitching about something. You can either be like me and sit on top of the mountain with the popcorn bowl watching it all unfold, or you could be in the thick of it and get caught up in the crossfire. It's up to you. All I do is provide the information from an independent lens. On the outside looking in on it all. I don't take a side. I don't identify with anybody's culture or anybody's way of life or anything like that. I'm my own man. And I will always be that. You come anywhere around my family or my house, then we're going to have a problem. But there ain't nothing or nobody out there that can prevent me from achieving prosperity and happiness. You can't ever take that from me. Because I could leave this whole thing and go off the grid and go out in the mountains and be as happy and free as I ever could be. And nobody would ever be none the wiser. Go in the middle of Alaska and nobody would ever find me. You could lock down my body, but you can't handcuff my dreams. Is the bottom line. And ain't nobody else could do that to any of yous out there anyways. Don't matter what color you are. Don't matter what your religion is, what your sexual preference is. If you allow your influencers to create handicaps for you, then you're the weak-minded type of person that needs to be led like sheep. But you want to be superior and above all that and be on an elite-minded mindset of survival of the fittest, you could separate yourself from all of that, listen to everybody's point of view, and never have any kind of emotional attachment to it. Doesn't matter what they say, what words they use that people can't use or people like to use, words in the streets that we've talked about. None of that stuff even phases you. Wouldn't even skip a beat on your heart to hear it. In any case, whatever happens, you're going to have to be strong. You're going to have to be emotionally grounded. All this ultra-sensitive, soy boy, snowflake mentality type thinking that's going on today needs to go out the window, man, because things will get different. And if you ain't strong, you ain't fit to survive. Just think about that. Remember my motto. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, non-sugarcoated, not politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that dick of reality. And I'm out.